So it's 1 o'clock right now, and we want to respect everyone's time and start our webinar. This is our last portion or component of our March virtual series for GEL. My name is Dan Saipan. I'm the director of GEL, or Global Experiential Learning. Usually we're traveling the world, all around the world, but of course with the pandemic, we're having to stay put here in Tucson. But as we do in other countries, we're trying to discover the different cultural and community service pieces all over the world, and we're going to do it here in Tucson. So what better way to talk about the culture of Tucson than the poetry of Tucson? So we have a great webinar for you talking about the local scene of the poetry here in Tucson. And of course, I don't do this alone. I want to introduce the team that has been working on it for this past month.
Hi everyone, my name is Giselle Del Cid. I am a first-year PhD student here in the College of Education, and I am the student lead for our community team here at GEL.
Hello everybody, I am Leslie. I am a current senior at the University of Arizona, majoring in speech, language, and hearing sciences, and I am a current intern for GEL.
Leslie, would you like to introduce this slide?
Before we continue with this webinar, we at GEL would like to acknowledge the land in which we sit upon. With this being said, we want to share with you the land acknowledgement video that was created by the UA American Indian Alumni Club.
Skikdash Wasajumai, Anian Upjigik, Amy Lynn Spotted Wolf, Aniapam Amjad, Jer Shaik, Wawikir Dikjikshan, Thanatum Joed. Anuid Miss Indian Arizona 2020-2021. Good day. My name is Amy Lynn Spotted Wolf, and I come from the Fresno Canyon community in the Babikiwi district on the Thanatum Nation. I am a senior here at the University of Arizona studying elementary education under the Indigenous Teacher Education Project. I am Miss Indian Arizona 2020-2021. Samach Achmach An Thanatam Hajurika Dam Oyopo. We acknowledge our presence on the Thanatam ancestral lands. For time immemorial, the Thanatam have been part of this landscape and the University of Arizona. The rich history and connection the Thanatam have to the University of Arizona is visible in the land. The saguaro, agave, ocotillo, and creosote bush used to beautify the university campus are sacred plants to the Thanatam. The mountains that surround the University of Arizona and contribute to the advancement in the studies of the Southwest at the UA are the homes of our ancestors. Babatoag, also known as Mount Lemon, Chimamactoag, also known as Tumamak Hill, Toakuo, also known as Santa Rita Mountains, are just several of the many mountain ranges important to the Thanatam culture and identity. Our connection to the land is living and breathing in us here in Tucson. We use this connection to the land and our ancestors to guide our studies at the University of Arizona. Tehugi, Sapa, thank you.
During this webinar, participants will have the opportunity to ask panelists questions using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Please feel free to ask any questions, and we will take the time towards the end of the presentation to answer them. Thank you. We will now continue on to our next slide.
So a little bit more about global experiential learning. We try to integrate travel, multicultural education, and service learning to empower students in their studies here at the University of Arizona. We try to include very diverse and inclusive programming for all U of A students, and we really target our marginalized populations, students of color, first generation DACA students, and low income status students to participate in this program. We have a really unique structure where we try to make it as low cost as possible. There's even no cost programs or free programs here at the U of A. Just around here in the University of Arizona, we try to do local program, domestic programs, and also international programs. So if you're looking to travel in this upcoming year, and hopefully we can, please contact us and we'll give the information at the end of this presentation.
Perfect. Perfect. So thank you all for joining us today. On this presentation, we will be focusing on poetry, Tucson poetry and the culture that thrives within it. Today, we are featuring local organizations such as the Reading Series and UA Poetry Center for their efforts and mission to create more inclusive and diverse spaces for poets to share their art. We will learn how efforts have been shaped now because of COVID, as well as learning how you can get involved to share your art and your voice within this. So we will also be having live performances with multiple poets. So we are really excited to have that. And we'll be moving on to our next slide.
And this brings us to our next slide of introducing our speakers for today. First off, we have Tyler Meier. Tyler is an executive director at the University of Arizona Poetry Center and affiliated faculty in the University of Arizona's English department. Prior to coming to the Poetry Center, he served as managing editor at the Kenyon Review, co-editor at the Kenyon Review Young Writers Workshop. His poetry and nonfiction have appeared at Length, AG&I, Laurel Review, Boston Review, and elsewhere. He serves on the boards of Scoundrel and Scamp Theater, the Humanities Seminar Program, and the Confluence Center at the Creative Inquiry, and the steering committee for the UA affiliation with America's Literary Translator Association.
Perfect, and that brings us to Eva Maria Sierra. Eva is a queer, bilingual poet, teaching artist, and author from Douglas, Arizona. Eva's writing reflects identity, culture, childhood, mental health, and the realities and beauties of living on the border to Sonora, Mexico. In mid-2019, Eva became the director of the Reading Series alongside the now late Isaac Kirkman, which is a literary program, zine press, and poetry open mic based in Tucson that prioritizes the safety, healing, and justice of their participants. Eva has taught original poetry writing and performance workshops at dozens of libraries, schools, and literary events, as well as other community spaces across Arizona and beyond. She has published 2 poetry chapbooks titled Caña y Limón and Rain. And that brings us to our next slide, where we have KP, who is a human being who understands and sees the world as it is, especially as an African and Black person. Thus, this allows him to speak on it in a multitude of ways, poetry being one of those ways. He's always constantly seeking solutions for those in which these problems affect the most.
Next, we have Paola. Paola is a bilingual poet and spoken word artist from Douglas, Arizona, and Agua Prieta, Sonora. She loved writing poetry as a child, but became more serious about her writing in high school drama club and poetry club. She is also an active participant in the Tucson Youth Poetry Slam, winning region-wide championship in 2018 and eventually becoming a staff member of Spoken Futures, the grassroots literary organization behind TYPS. She released her first poetry chapbook, Cricket's Lament, Poemas de Duelo e Inocencia, in November 2020. She will graduate from the University of Arizona in May 2021 with a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in creative writing and was one of 2 artists awarded the 2021 Sonoran Arts Residency in Ajo, Arizona. Through poetry performance, she hopes to foster the sense of community with her audience.
And we have Christopher Valenzuela, who is a non-binary Chicanx writer from Tucson, Arizona. They are currently pursuing a degree in creative writing at the University of Arizona. Their work has previously been published in Sanskrit, Literary, and Art magazine, as well as the Saturn zine from the Reading Series. Their work mainly focuses on their experience with substance abuse, self-image, and the exploration of their intersecting identities.
And lastly, we have Fatima C Peña. She is a creative with disciplines in visual arts, ceramics, sculptures, and poetry. She also has an interest for jewelry, tattooing, and glass blowing. The majority of her visual work consists of vibrantly drawn or painted portraits. She currently interns for Nomadic Poetry organization based in Tucson called the Reading Series, and works full-time as a teacher aide at PPEP Tech High School. So thank you all for all of our panelists. We are extremely thankful to have you join us today. We will now pass on the presentation to our first panelist, Tyler, to discuss the Poetry Center further.
Thanks so much. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks to the jail staff for all your work organizing, and excited to share space with Eva and with Paola and Fatima and KP and Christopher. Looking forward to hearing poems soon. To tell you a little bit more about the Poetry Center, one of the best ways to start, I think, is to play this short video that gives you some context for our space, and then I'll fill in the gaps after we hear it. So this is just about 1.5 minutes, I think.
Here, in our home in Tucson, we have what's been called the greatest living room in America for reading poetry. The Poetry Center houses one of the largest poetry collections in the world, but the poems and the poets go far beyond these walls. They meet their readers. They inspire writers of all ages, and they catalyze conversation. These poems participate in other art forms, and they speak to and through the times, redefining what it means to read, as well as to write. And since 1962, our Visiting Writer series has revised the script of what a poetry event can be. These poems are not restrained by page or place. They travel to other creative spaces. And our educational programs develop creativity in young learners and sharpen the practice of working writers. The University of Arizona Poetry Center expands with our ever-changing poetry community, breaching boundaries of language so that we can listen, so that we can attend and reconceive our world, so that we can share. This is your center.
Okay, great. So that gives you some context for what the Poetry Center looks like and what the space is like. And one of my messages today, the big thing that I want to share is that this is a space that's your space, and it's available to you on the U of A campus. And we're just north of Speedway Boulevard on Helen and Cherry as the cross streets. So if you get across to that side of campus and are looking for a good place to study, a good place to explore poetry, to check out our collections, I really want to make sure that you know that this is a space that's available to you. Typically, in a normal year, we are wide open to the public and excited to host you, except for this year, which is a weird one. And so we're very hopeful that we'll be able to reopen our doors to the public as the virus continues to further settle down, but we're not ready yet. And so tentatively, our target date is August. And at that time, we're really excited that people might be coming back into our spaces and participating in programs again. So know that it's a space that's available to you, and it's a special space. There's not many like it in the world, and so we really want to make sure that it's a space that students know about and can make use of. The center was founded in 1960, so we've been around for quite some time on the U of A campus and have existed in different iterations across campus, first in 2 tiny little houses, where one was a library with a collection of books kind of from the floor to the ceiling, and the other was a space where visiting poets could come and stay and visit when they were in Tucson, maybe traveling to other places as well. Fast forward to the current moment, we're really lucky to have a big home for the Poetry Center that holds all the books as our library collection has continued to grow and grow and grow. And so this new facility that we have is 17,000 square feet. It holds more than 80,000 items in the Poetry Center's collection and is a home base for us where we can do a lot of work that helps animate the life of that collection, but then also gives us a platform to reach out into community and to make connections and to be supporting work that's happening elsewhere in Tucson. So our reading series happens in this space at the Poetry Center. The collection is housed here, and it's a space that's open to the public and welcomes everyone who comes through the door. The mission of the Poetry Center is to advance a diverse and robust literary culture that serves a local to global spectrum of writers, readers, and new audiences for poetry and the literary arts. And we think about that work in a lot of broad ways. What does it mean to do this work in diverse and robust ways? What does it mean to serve that big spectrum that both has obligations and responsibilities to local community, but then also aspirations about how we might connect with people really broadly? And so we do that work in a range of ways. So I mentioned the collection. That's a big part. It's kind of the backbone of our identity and the work that we've done is growing that collection slowly over time. We're still collecting about 1,200 new poetry books a year and subscribing to about 250 literary journals. So you can always come in and see new materials that have been added to the work of the collection more broadly. But beyond just books, there's also a really wonderful and expansive audiovisual archive that we'll talk more about in a little bit. A special collection of portraits of poets that has existed. We're documenting how poets, images of poets throughout the years from 1960 to the present, as well as special collections of broadsides and other fine press and chapbook-sized materials. So there's a range of ways in which we think about the work of collecting and how we do it at the Poetry Center, and there's a lot of special signature collections within the broader collection. Our reading series is a big part of what we do. And so the reading series at the Poetry Center typically hosts upwards of 30 events per year, bringing through 40 plus visiting poets. And so these are poets who, everything from emerging writers who have first books out to established poets who are maybe towards the tail end of a career as a writer. These events are all open and free to the public. And again, in a normal year, we're excited to be doing those right now. And this year, that work is happening mostly online through the Poetry Center's website. That's a big part of how we activate some of the promise of the collection and make good on our mission. We also have a range of other programs that do that work as well, including work that we're doing with K through 12 program schools in Tucson and beyond, serving about 5,000 Arizona students annually through the K-12 outreach. And that happens across 7 distinct programs that are led by Poetry Center staff. We also have a community classes and workshops program that offers inexpensive courses by working writers to a general public, and there's scholarships available for those classes. So these are non-credit courses that are open to community members that typically happen on the weekends and the evenings at the Poetry Center, again, when we're open to the public. And then there are a range of community collaborations that we also work on to bring forward our mission. So if you've been in downtown Tucson recently, you may have noticed that there are haikus that have been placed in different planter boxes throughout Congress Street from one side to the other through the downtown stretch. And that was part of a collaboration with the Downtown Tucson Partnerships, which is a group that advocates for the life of downtown. And so it was a haiku contest, and the 20 winning haiku are up there now. So if you're up for a socially distanced walk and feel good about your mask, take a visit and go check out those haiku, and you can see them throughout Congress Street. That's an example of another project and way that we imagine some of the work that we do. I would be remiss not to mention our web space, so I want to call that out, poetry.arizona.edu. It's the way to find out everything that's happening at the Poetry Center, and the calendar that we keep there catalogs all of that work and events that are coming up. So you can learn about what's happening by visiting that website. There's also a daily blog space that's producing new material and new content related to poetry and education, as well as other ways that we highlight the collections in that space. And we're really excited in the pandemic. We've seen a big surge in interest in what's happening in that digital space. And so our traffic has doubled, and so we're having about 200,000 people visit a year, which has been a gift and a real excitement to meet and connect with people digitally and safely while we can over the past close to 13 months now. I want to just mention a couple other things. In the video we saw, you got to see the Poetry Center space. And so the collection is on open shelves there. And so as you come into the Poetry Center, you're surrounded by 4 walls, and you have all of those poetry books on the shelves. And there's something close to 55,000 books of just books in the collection. So if you do the math, this works out to something like 5 million poems that you can be in the presence of. And so I hope when you're able to come visit, you come into the Poetry Center just for that experience alone, which I'm not sure you can experience anywhere else in the world the way you can here. And you could touch each one of those poems if you wanted to. They're all on paper between the covers of books. So it's one of the unique ways in which the Poetry Center thinks about its work and tries to think about stewarding a collection. And then the next slide has a couple of just quick things that I'll call out as I get to talking a little bit about our Art for Justice program as my final swoop here. Two other big projects we're focused on right now. One of the ways in which we've tried to respond to the pandemic was by launching a podcast. So we learned how to do this and spent some time thinking about if we had the right equipment and how we could connect with people. And we're excited that that has really resonated, and it seems like it's been meaningful for the people who listen to it. So if you're a podcast person, I encourage you to go visit any of the platforms where you can get podcasts, and you'll find Poetry Centered, which features a contemporary poet in each episode. And then the poet curates 3 poems from that big audiovisual archive. So they're picking historical poems that are meaningful to them for some reason, in some way, and introducing those to the audience, and then sharing a poem of their own. And so we're really excited that that podcast now has reached its 6,000th download. So it's a great way to take a sort of a history lesson of the last 60 years of contemporary poetry in English, and then also hear some more contemporary, very recent work from working writers. And that's a free podcast, and you're welcome to enjoy that, and I hope you will. The other project we're excited about is the Dear Vaccine Project, and this is a project that's launching at the UA vaccination site on Monday. But you can go to the website now, which is live, and the website for this is globalvaccinepoem.com, and it invites everyone to respond to the experience of living through the pandemic and the experience of seeking vaccination by adding a couple of lines to a community poem. And we're really excited by the way this has grown already. There's close to 450 responses before we've launched. And they're from all over the United States and around the world. So Singapore and Israel and the UK and South Africa and India and other places. And we're really excited by the ways it's starting to resonate with people and making a space for people to share their voices. When it goes live on the U of A site, you can expect, if you come to get a vaccination there, that you'll get a card inviting you to participate in the project. And then our hope is that we'll see more and more people sharing their voice and responding to the emotional weight of the past 13 months. So that's a project that we're excited about, and that's coming really soon. The last project I just wanted to mention was our Art for Justice project, and this has been a 3-year collaboration with the Ford Foundation and a bunch of contemporary writers. And part of the project at the Poetry Center, there have been a range of ways we've worked on this project, but the thrust of it is working with the power of imaginative language and thinking about the legacy and crisis of mass incarceration in the country, and where those two intersect, what new possibilities might become available to us as we try to imagine a different future from the one we're headed towards otherwise. And so we've commissioned 18 contemporary poets to write new work that thinks about the problem and the legacy of mass incarceration in this country. Many of these poets have personal experience or adjacent experience with the carceral system. And so they've written from these perspectives as they've thought about this commission and the work that they want to do. And we've been excited to host these poets in Tucson at the Poetry Center to present these new poems as they've been able to draft them. And so 2 of those we just wanted to highlight and call out. And the first is from a poet named Natalie Diaz, who teaches at Arizona State University, so a colleague here in Arizona, and a really powerful poem that she wrote about a family member. So we can listen to that poem now, and then we'll hear the next one from Tongo in a moment.
Another word that gets me is just correction facility. I just think it's, again, like the absurdity of all of this is under correction. Well, and with privatization, everything has become like a moneymaker, and so now most people don't even get to visit physically their loved ones in prison because it is such a moneymaker to have video, you know, or Skype, or to have to pay for, you know, your 15-minute phone call or your, you know, 20 minutes of video. Under correction. When we visit the correctional facility to see my sister, we do not get to see her. We watch a television of her. This is not the correct body of my sister. She is somewhere on the other side of the screen. I am somewhere on this side of the screen. In this box within a box, we are each less than ourselves. We are the unbody, not quite sisters, instead a distance. We are a performance of people, but not real people. We are a TV show. In literary terms, this is a frame narrative, a box within a box. I'm not sure who is the narrator, me, or the person watching me behind the small black camera in the ceiling corner of this room. But there is a third space, the space of touch, which has, of course, been corrected. I am not seeing my sister. My eyes are not touching her. She is being held in the screen, and for her, we are being held in the screen. They move her from facility to facility with no warning or explanation, because they can, and I follow her because I must. I follow her into every television or video screen, Vizio, LG, Samsung, Panasonic, Sony. All the cells in a plasma display are smashed together, held inside by two glass plates, front, back. I am caught in the middle of a riddle of glass, because I made the mistake of looking for my sister, who is behind the glass, from where I am behind the glass. The screen has fingerprints smudged on it from other visitors who reached out for who was not there. I tell myself, do not touch the screen. Do not let them know that they are punishing your body by taking your body away, by correcting your body, so that it knows it does not deserve to touch its sister. Do not reach out and touch the screen to join in this act. Do not remind your sister that her body is being corrected to a condition. I do not touch the screen. I cannot touch my sister. My sister needs money to buy a thermal because it is so cold at night. I say maybe they keep it so cold here to deter germs, to make it safer for my sister's body. But we both know they make it cold to punish. This is their mistake, I think, this coldness. It is making my sister remember her body. Her body is fighting this punishment. It is shivering, as if to say, I deserve more. I am watching her shiver, and I am in my mind all this time, holding my sister in my arms. Gracias.
Really powerful poem. Natalie wrote extensively in that project about her family. And you can see in her style that kind of more deliberate way of presenting, making use of kind of space and pause as a way to bring forward the messages that she's interested in talking about. And that challenge of touch and of what touch is possible and what touch we miss. Really powerful. Tango Eisen Martin is a poet from California, from the Bay Area. And you'll see right away his style is very different in terms of presentation, almost a kind of oracular style. And he's interested in this project, especially about calling out underpinnings and flaws in broader American culture. So this is Tango.
Fast cash smuggled through my infant torso, I arrived smiling. Coral check cashing spots sealed my eyes, hearing voices, but none of them sang to me. I am lucky to be a metaphor for no one. A Greek philosopher takes the path of least resistance. The Brides Corporation age dons. In boardrooms, they ask if county line skin can be churned directly into cornflakes. A Senate special chain gang mines our neighborhoods for evidence of continent unity, makes a mess of the word kin. System makes a psychic adjustment, makes a war report out of a family's secret chord progression, makes white people geniuses. Lynch mob freaks rehearse their show tunes in the courthouse walls that they take for mirrors, rehearse for a president's pat on the head, a pat on the head that they take for audience laughter, a lot of sirs in the soup, a lot of speed, treaty ink-stained teeth, write themselves a grin. Imperialist speechwriter grins, boil over in my ink-riddled mind. A non-future dripping with real people. I mean real people, not poem people. A street with no servants somehow. A soul singer somehow in the West. Constellation Eternity, or the poor man's fish order, this half of a spirit, or husk of a messiah, religious memorabilia made from the wood of a farm fence for sibling domestic colonies and the non-profit Tuesday meltdowns, we do straightforward time. Plot twist provided by white beggars in a black city, the fathers who Reagan flicked, kicking garbage, thinking about rates of production, notebooks dangling out of car windows. We go the way of now extinct hand gestures. Mediterranean sandals and underground moods in tandem. I mean, whoever I am today is still your friend. Crooked cops and crooked news junkies. Diallo is your mind on military science, is from your monotheistic toy collection. If you turn down the television low enough, you can hear San Francisco begging for more war profiteering. If it wasn't for San Francisco, there wouldn't have been a transatlantic slave trade. We will not live forever, but someone out here wants us to. We are mice pouring through an hourglass. In Olympus, Babylon, or Babylon, Olympus, subway car smoke session making its way into an interrogation room. Maybe it's all just one room. It's definitely all just one smoker. Poor people writing letters near books about Malcolm X. Ice picking the art. New floorboards for Watt's prophecy. Pen twitching over scrap paper. Pen tweaking while smoothly a bus driver delivers incarcerated children. The Lord's door opens.
So entirely different in terms of style, but also focused on this intersection of what imaginative language might make possible or what it might suggest. So the Art for Justice project has been really powerful for us, and we've been really thrilled to be able to work with a lot of writers through that project. And if you want to learn more about it, you can learn more on the Poetry Center's website and explore some of the responses from poets. It's great to spend a little time with you all. I'm so excited to hear from Eva and KP and Paola and Christopher and Fatima next. So I'll just step back now with gratitude to everybody.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tyler. That was amazing. Thank you so much for showing us all of the amazing things that the Poetry Center is hosting. But yes, so now moving on, we will have Eva Sierra talk about the reading series. So Eva, I will pass the mic to you. Thank you.
Okay, hi. Thank you, Giselle. Thank you, everyone, for holding space. Thank you, Tyler, for talking about the Poetry Center. That was really cool to hear. Those poets were really amazing. KP and I were kind of going crazy in the chat, and I'm sure a lot of people were also really enjoying the poetry, so that's really great. I just wanted to quickly start with going over the mission statement for the reading series, and then talk a little bit about how we started, what's kind of happened, how the program has changed from an open mic, as you see in the first picture, to kind of a Zoom open mic, and then now like a zine series and other programs that we have going on right now. But I'll start with our mission statement. The reading series is an arts and literacy program that serves Tucson and the greater Arizona region, as well as stray writers and artists all over the world. The reading incorporates the healing and self-growth aspects of tarot and astrology into its workings, and strives to provide a safe space to share poetry and lyrics, particularly for young people, queer people, and people of color. And then the next slide has some information that I wanted to kind of go over. Yeah, so the reading series was born about July of 2019 between myself and the now late Isaac Kirkman. And I myself have roots in Types, which is a program of Spoken Futures. It's a poetry open mic for young people that has now since sunsetted. But that's where I had my roots as a coordinator and kind of like understanding the poetry community in Tucson, specifically for young people, right? And then Isaac Kirkman was aide to Tere Fowler Chapman, who did Words on the Avenue. And so between the two of us, we kind of understood that there was a need in Tucson for a specific group of people, marginalized people, young people, queer people, people of color. We needed like an open mic specifically for those people that would honor them and keep them safe and do all of those things. So that's where that was born. And the name, the reading series, kind of was born from the astrology and the tarot aspect of it. So we kept it simple. And we named our first season after the zodiac. So it was the Virgo reading, the Libra reading, the Scorpio reading, and so on. And then our second season has been named after planetary aspects. So the respective planetary ruler of every aspect of astrology has been like the name of our programming. So Juno, Saturn, Mars and Venus for our next scene. So that's how we've been working now. And then we could go to the next slide. Since Isaac's passing, that kind of shortly after that, I had to, I guess, assume the role of a director. I mean, we were both working half and half, but I had to take over fully. So I welcomed the help of Fatima, who you'll be hearing some amazing poetry from later. And Fatima has been helping me kind of with this transition as well with COVID and moving everything to Zoom. We had some Zoom open mics, and KP and I were talking about that earlier, that there's such a culture that we kind of created within Zoom, and we made something really fun with it. I myself, and I think others, were kind of getting tired of the format. So the program has now transformed into like a zine series. So we went from open mic to open zine. So now people from the whole city are welcome to submit their artwork, their poetry, all of those things. Echoing what Tyler had mentioned earlier, the reading series really is here for everyone. Something that Isaac and I really honored in the beginning was that this is a space for like the nomads, the weirdos, the people that don't get out much, like, because that's how him and I particularly found our way here in Tucson. I became involved in all of this as a young poet, going to types when I was 14, 15 years old, and I would go by myself and I would read my crappy poetry. And then that's how I was able to gain mentorship and develop as a writer. And Isaac shares a similar story, coming here to Tucson, joining the writer's studio, and then coming under the wing of Tere Fowler Chapman. So we definitely want to make sure that poetry is accessible for everyone. Anyone can hop on the mic, anyone can become staff, anyone can be introduced to opportunities, kind of like what you'll be seeing today with the readers that we have today. So that's really kind of what the reading series is all about. Yeah. And then I think the next slide just kind of has a little bit, there's like a picture of our last scene, and then I also have it right here. So our press is what we've been really emphasizing. And then my own chapbook also is a product of our press. So we're really proud that we're able to make our own books and all of that with kind of the resources that the reading has. And then also that is an open resource. Like I said, anyone can submit and be a part of it. So yeah, I'm really excited for everything. And I'm excited to go back to doing the open mics how we used to once it's safe to do that again. So yeah, thank you again all for the space, and I'm excited to hear from the poets.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Eva, for sharing all of that information. And so, yeah, so moving forward to this next section, we'll be having our performers. We're so honored to share this space and, listen and hear from them. So we can stop sharing the screen, and we will first, we can have KP go first, and then we'll have Paola, and then we'll have Christopher, and then we'll have Fatima, and then Eva. So whenever y'all are ready, you guys can start and begin. Thank you.
I heard my name, so I'm excited to go first, I guess. Thank you, Eva Sierra. Thank you, Giselle. Thank you, everybody. To go in front of all these amazing poets is just, scared, you know what I mean? Nervous, but gonna get to it. Got a little short one. Not gonna do the one that I sent in, just gonna do a different one that I had on my mind because just too motivated after that last one because I was just, whoo, even the one before that, I'm like, yeesh, that was too crazy. All right. The roots are rotten, so the ground is spoiled. War for oil, war on drugs, this country's stomach is spoiled. Feeding on anything it needs to sustain, yet it's unsustainable. Needing to strong arm every country for the sake of its people's comfort, yet many uncomfortable people alike living on a large graveyard. So much pain in my purple heart from the wars we all endure. Surviving death every day, how much more can we endure? That's it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That was amazing. Thank you. So we will now pass it to Paola. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for having us today. It's really flattering to be here alongside everybody today. We've heard some really amazing poetry, and I'm like KP said, I'm really nervous. So I'm going to be reading a couple poems from my chapbook that I just released last November. It's called Cricket's Lament, Poemas de Duelo y Inocencia. This one's titled Cricket's Lament. Los grillos cantan canciones de duelo. They remember us as we were young, before the angst of adolescence and the vices of adulthood forced us to grow up. I close my windows at night, but I can still hear the chirping, echoes of the past refusing to die. No sé cómo explicarles quién soy. Ya no me reconocen. Body of a woman covered in sin, they ask where I've gone, they ask what I've done. My song is silent, and it is enough for them to understand. They cry my morning crickets. Only they know the anguish of watching children grow. And this is a second poem. It's called Love Letter to the Self, and I actually wrote it after Kim Adonisio's Forms of Love, which I actually read from the Poetry Center. So, and I think I wrote it there. So yeah. I love you, even if you are fat. I love you. I just wish you had a bigger butt and didn't make me count so high when figuring out your weight. I love your confidence. It's so brave. I love you when you're not eating fast food. I love you when you're not bloated. I love you like I love the mirrors at Target that trick you into buying clothes. I love you more than I've ever loved anyone except for this one girl I follow on Instagram. I love you in spite of the carbs. I love you in spite of the scars. I love you when you call skipping class and drinking booze self-care. I love you as long as you keep working hard. I love you when you go jogging. I love you when you ignore the hunger. I love you from your therapist's office and from the Facebook comments, where tias debate the appropriateness of your dresses. I love how you defined love as older men appreciating parts of your body you had kept hidden. I love that you let men teach you to sleep facing the mirror naked. I love the mornings when you open your eyes. I love the mornings when you find pleasure in the image, despite the comments that your mom and your tias and the TV and the magazines and I made. I love you even if your love came from men and sex. I love you despite your body. I love you because of your body. I love you when you can't decide. I love you. You really are brave. Cool. And I just have one more poem from you guys, for you guys. And this one isn't from my book, but it's just something that I wrote for class recently. And this one's called Haunted Bodies. Vulnerability isn't just a noun, it's a verb. And it's not about release or pouring, it's about caring. It's forcing your eyes open, watching others naked, and by naked, I mean ugly and weak. I mean to say that people are not pretty and that big families just mean more stories to carry, more anguish to carry, more ancestors to haunt you. I'm not saying ghosts are here to harm us, but they sit on our chest and weep into our open mouths. I mean to ask you, have you heard the tears that hide in your mother's throat? What I mean is the violence that you fear didn't spark in your hands. You've been self-destructive since before you even had a self to destroy. I mean to say that our grandmother's house did not retain any of our history, any of their pain. We did. The body is a haunted house, and I can't stop the people that are dying inside of me. Thank you.
Amazing. I'm like speechless, y'all. Y'all are amazing. So I will pass it now to Fatima or Christopher, whoever would like to go next. Thank you.
I can go next. I don't know how I follow up after Paola. That was wow, that was amazing. And KP and all the poems we've heard. I just wow. I'm so honored to be in this space. Thank you for having this. So the poem I'm gonna read is a strikeout poem, which means that I'll read it twice, once in what is not struck out, and then once altogether. It deals with my like previous substance abuse and all of those things that like I just wasn't sure that I could talk about originally when I was dealing with all of this. So all the things I say. I drink a lot of coffee. I'm doing fine. I love my friends. I want to fall in love, but I'm gay. All the things I never say. I drink a lot of coffee because, hey, at least I'm not addicted to cocaine anymore. And somehow it feels better to say that I drank 4 grande iced coffees instead of I took a full 20 bag to my nose last night. I'm doing fine, as long as I'm not worrying about what I say, what I do, what I think, what I wear, if I'm being too gay, if I'm not being gay enough. And honestly, I don't know if I can be left alone with my thoughts most of the time. I love my friends, but sometimes I wonder if I am even good enough to be their friend. I wonder if I am too dumb or too uninteresting for them to really like me. Because how can people like this want to be around people like me? I want to fall in love, but there's some part of me that feels like I don't deserve to drown myself in it like I want to. And so I block myself off from others because that feels so much easier than trying to let someone in again, only for them to leave. I'm gay. And I only say that because it's just so much easier than explaining that I am like water. I am fluid in all aspects of who I am and who I love and who I fuck. And my preferences change day to day and moon to moon. Sometimes I feel like I got to spend all this time nurturing and loving this queer part of myself, only to be forced to share it with the rest of the world so that they can use it to give themselves substance. And damn, that's fucked up because I shouldn't have to feel like I can't ever really own myself. Sometimes I think about all the straight men I have corrupted and I cry because maybe I was only trying to prove to myself that I wasn't worthy of knowing what love felt like. And why would I do that? Because hurting myself is easier than letting other people hurt me. Sometimes I wonder if my friends will ever really understand who I want to be when I grow up, because it feels like I am in the wrong for wanting to be so ambitious and for wanting to leave a me-shaped imprint on the minds of those I meet. But what does the imprint of someone who is so fluid even really look like? Sometimes I just sit in my shower and let the water hit my face while I dissociate and think about all the things I've done wrong because I didn't make time for the gym this week or last week, and I ate that whole plate of French fries but didn't eat a salad, and maybe having an eating disorder wasn't such a bad thing to have if the alternative is this. Sometimes I think about just taking a shot or buying a bag and setting up lines because I'm bored with my routine. And all I do is wake up and go to school and go to work and smile and wave and pretend like I'm not actually falling apart. It feels like I have no fun anymore. And didn't my friends call me more often when I was this manic dream that couldn't remember if today was last week or next month? And I miss not feeling anything because at least I never worried if I was good enough on the outside.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. Fatima, if you'd like to go next, and then Eva, but thank you.
Oh my gosh, Chris. I don't even know why you're worried about coming after Paola. Like Paola was amazing, KP was amazing. And Chris, you were amazing. Like I love the format that you choose to write your poetry, and it's so personal and intimate, and I relate to a lot of it so much. So thank you for that. I only have one poem today, and it's called Unfinished. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start. Nostalgic of the future, my spirit knows not of time. Death to the incessant bickering of the mind. Render me useless to pain, surrender me to their name. A faceless consciousness filled with limitless affection, engulfed in assurance despite circulating doubt, lovable in spite of not loving self. My presence is my resilience against my mind. My mind, a programmed machine the maternal had yet to find. Old structures droning on, alongside daydreams of the Sonoran sunrise, wishing for a present moment to indulge her embrace, without words, without worry. How can this moment equal eternity? A universal truth that was once habit is now an equation that humans spend their lives trying to define and integrate. And I am one of them, stuck but always supported, faithful with a crushed neck. Thank you.
Amazing. Y'all got me, like, for real, y'all got me speechless. So Eva, if you'd like to go next, and then we can move on to the next sections after, but thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Fatima. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Paola. Thank you, KP. You all are so amazing. I'm so glad I can be in the presence of your all's work. Also, I did forget to mention earlier, if you wanted to learn more about the reading series or learn about the current submission window, you can find that on Instagram. Just find the reading series. No numbers, no underscores, nothing like that. And then I'll share my poem. In heaven, everyone gets food stamps and gold teeth and clean sheets and a nice pair of Dickies. Jesus fed the multitude with 2 fish and 5 tortillas and made lumber out of saguaros. Every baby that looks like me is an angel. I am not a prophet, but everything that I say becomes true. Anything that I want, I deserve. Thank you, spirits and ancestors and holy deities. I've learned that everything really does happen for a reason, even when I least understand. There are currently children locked up in cages, and I'm reading poems in Tucson, Arizona. There is so much dust in the desert, it coats my lungs. I think they are afraid to hear us speak because of the grains of sand that will leak out of our mouths, the richness of soil. I don't understand my place other than I can't lose my way if I am walking forward. The moon is a reminder. These grounds are blessed for us. We have already been deemed worthy. If me and mine are destined for heaven, may we learn everything we can in this life. If not, remember us gracefully. In our crooked teeth and mistakes, we are all born angels. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Y'all, you guys are amazing. So yeah, so I will now pass it off. Thank you so much for sharing, everybody. Like I said, that was amazing. So I will pass it off to my colleague, Leslie. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, for those amazing poems. They were a little touching in a sense. I just appreciate you being vulnerable and just expressing yourself through this form of poetry. With that, we would like to now transition to this Q&A portion of the webinar. We would like to begin by addressing the questions that you all put into the chat. So at this time, if you have not dropped your questions down into the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, please feel free to do so now. The first question that we have is addressed for anyone, whoever wants to jump in and answer it first. The concepts within the readings varied and highlighted a lot of different topics. For the readings that touched on heavier or more in-depth looks into personal struggles, is doing that hard for you? Was it hard to get to a position to discuss these types of topics out loud, or was it helpful? Okay, go ahead, Christopher.
For me, I find that like writing about these heavier subjects kind of helps clear the pathway to healing, if that makes sense. My body I'm literally shaking, like thinking about the fact that I like read that out loud right now. But I think that's kind of part of it. You know, Paola brought it up in her poem that vulnerability is a verb, right? It's something that we're doing. And I didn't know that those were the words I needed until I heard that in her poem. And I think that that's kind of the process of writing these like heavier subjects, is you're finding the words that you need or that you don't know that others need to hear. And there's just like this opening. There's an opening in the sense of closing this wound, if that makes any sense at all.
Kind of like spiritual healing, like, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Anybody else want to take a stab at this question? Okay, Paola, go ahead. The floor is all yours.
Yeah, I've been like reading poetry for like a really, I guess, yeah, a long time really. And it's something that you kind of get used to just like show your emotions in front of people. And for me personally, it's always been easier to read something to a room full of strangers than it's been to say it to someone, like to a friend almost. Um, and like Chris said, there's a healing to it. And I think it's almost like practicing having conversations with like the people that you don't really want to have those conversations with. So I think in a way it feels easier than it does to just speak. But yeah, and it gets easier with time too. Like the first time I read, I was like shaking, and now it feels like really comfortable to just read out loud. And it's really fun too.
Okay, thank you for that answer. Anybody else want to go before we move on to the next question? No? Okay. Another question that we do have right now, it looks like we only have one question left, like enough time for one question. So again, this is an open question to anybody, whoever wants to like go ahead and take a stab at it. The question is, what is something about poetry that you hope other people could truly understand from your point of view?
I wanted to go, if that's okay.
Go for it.
Thanks. I think something about poetry, and then I think any type of writing, really, lyricism or however it is. I think poetry and lyricism, particularly, is that you kind of have more bravery, I guess, echoing what Paola and Christopher had said earlier. Like you have more power, and people are more inclined to listen to you if you're kind of performing what you're saying as opposed to just saying your words out loud. So I wanted to, I guess, express that as a poet, as a writer, you have a platform, an ability to influence others. So I think that's super powerful, and you should be aware of that.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. Anybody else want to go ahead before we move on?
I kind of wanted to chime in a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of agree with Eva in that sense, because like I've only recently started writing poetry more in a more ritual sense since like last year. And you know, I'm a very like reserved, quiet type of person, and I've never actually expressed my emotions very well or at all. And since I started writing poetry, I feel like it's very releasing, very helpful, and not only just to write it for yourself, but to share that with people, and then, you know, get the feedback, get people that resonate with how you're feeling. And it creates a sense of community, you know, and feeling seen and feeling heard, and just having that support is always really nice.
Yeah, I definitely did see that today. You guys are very supportive, very encouraging of each other. And it's just something that I don't really see a lot with other communities. And I just really felt like this sense of family going on, just the support that you guys bring with each other. And I think that's really beautiful. Thank you for all those answers. I will now pass it on to Giselle.
So thank you all so much for answering those questions. I will now open the floor for Tyler and Eva. I know Eva had mentioned that you guys will be having future events coming up. And then Tyler, if you want to talk about the Poetry Center. So I will now go ahead and pass it off to y'all. Thank you.
I love those poems we just heard. I'm so grateful for the poets we just read. Thank you guys so much. I just want to call out one thing, and that's that if you liked the Art for Justice poems, you had a chance to hear those poets speaking. We have one of our last presentations in that series, and it'll be virtual on April 22nd. It's the last item on this little screenshot, and you can find more on the website. And it's with the poets Nicole Seeley, John Murillo, and Hanif Abdurakib. And it's April 22nd, and we'd love to have you there if you're interested. It's 5 o'clock Arizona time that night. So looking forward to it. Thanks again.
Sounds cool. I want to be part of that too. Yeah, the only thing that we have going up right now is our submission window for the Mars and Venus scene. So that'll be going up to April 7th. So we're accepting poetry, visual art, and short stories. And then to be determined in the future, we will be doing open mics again in person.
Perfect. So on our next slide, we will, okay, perfect. So we have the contact information. So if the audience, if you'd like to jot any of this down, please feel free to. Eva, I know you mentioned also that I don't know if you all have any other social media. Tyler, I know you shared that there's Instagram and Twitter. So yeah, so if anybody would like to take a picture of this in the audience, but thank you so much. And also thank you, KP. Thank you so much for sharing. I know you said in the chat you have to leave, but thank you. Thank you so much. So we can now, okay, perfect. So I'll pass this back to Leslie. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so to that end, we want to thank everyone who took the time out of the day to be here with us as we learn more about their local efforts contributing to the art, poetry in the Tucson community with such amazing guest speakers. Adding on, we want to mention that our post assessment is attached onto this slide, so please take a moment to take out your phone, scan the QR code, and fill it out as soon as possible. We would like to reiterate that completing this assessment will count as your attendance to this webinar. We hope you all enjoyed our presentation today and learned more about our local community. I'll pass it on to Dan for any last remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all our presenters and panelists today. I'm always kind of pushing everybody to experience the culture outside of where you live in Tucson, but stay right here, learn about this culture. This was amazing today. So thank you so much. Once again, we do travel though, and hopefully when this pandemic is over, we'll start up to travel again. So hopefully everybody can mask up, social distance, and if you can, vax up so we can travel again. So we can all bear down and do our regular gel once again. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next month for our next month's April virtual series. We'll see you next time.